maybe next year, please just extend your trip from Thailand to Indonesia, so we can have you here offline.
That's no problem. That's no problem. Sure.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I think maybe we can, but
so should I share the screen now?
Yes, it's all right, Prof. The students
if the slides is there.
Yeah, but they're not coming yet. Only 12 students.
Okay, but anyway, then we see. So you can see the slides, right? And I will.
Yes, Prof. We can see.
Presentation modus for the first one. Okay, I go back. Now should be the first slide.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we wait for the participants
to join
sure. In the next 1-2 minutes, yeah, Prof.
Yeah, we can wait. But it's always like sometimes, even yesterday I had a meeting and then it took so long before somebody could upload his slides. I don't know, something.
Yeah. Always good to anticipate the Prof.
These online disasters.
Of course, yeah. We are so bored with this online life, yeah, Prof. Yeah. But how this the COVID situation in Germany, Prof, now? Because in here and also in Australia, we are facing the next wave, yeah, Prof. Yeah.
Yeah, they say like that, but I think people not so worried anymore.
Yeah.
The same here. Also, here nobody talks about COVID anymore. They just don't want to talk about it. And it's so funny. People wear masks and then they take it off again and then they put it on again. So half the people don't and other people do. And so you can.
Life must go on.
Yeah. I don't know. Because we all had, I had 4 vaccinations and still had COVID. So
you still have, yeah, Prof. How many times you got COVID, Prof?
Empat
kali.
No, COVID. Satu.
The COVID satu. Okay.
But vaccination 4.
For vaccination, yeah. I also same, Prof. I also got 4 vaccination and twice COVID.
Oh, see? Okay.
Because at the end of the day, everybody will get it. No matter what.
I think so. Yeah. That's it's the best way. And anyway, there will be new variants, but we already have some resistance against it. Wait for the new one. For something new will come. Something new.
Yeah. So then we just I don't know. We just wait for that. Just and then just still continue our life. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, where are these students? Because the first session just finished about 30 minutes ago, Prof. It's about 100 students.
Oh my God!
And then maybe they just because today is quite a short gap between the last sessions. 30 minutes. Maybe they're just on the way to Zoom.
Maybe they want to have lunch now.
Not yet, Prof. Lunch is about 12 to 1 p.m. in Indonesia. That's the normal lunch time. Yeah, all right.
It's okay. We can wait. I have a little time later. It's fine.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we can wait the next 1-2 minutes.
Yeah, and then they will just come in and then sort of.
Right. Okay,
anyway,
maybe
you can share the slides with them and they can look.
Yes,
and if later they have a question, they can always ask.
Right. Okay. I'll try to remind them in the WhatsApp group, yeah, Prof. Oh, wait a second, Prof. Please join. Prof. Waibel is already here. Mas Arif bisa minta tolong biasa link untuk absensi ya Mas Arif ya.
Ya Bu.
Ya, thank you Mas Arif.
Now coming. 25.
25. Yeah. Maybe just one more minutes and yeah.
Okay.
You know, still with this Indonesian style ngaret, Prof. Do you know ngaret?
What's that?
Ngaret is late, being
Oh,
late.
late, ngaret.
Being
Okay.
late for a meeting, being late for appointment.
Okay, you can have it. Okay.
I know it's very Asian.
It's Asian. It's everyone Asian.
Very Asian.
You know, they say, like
Yeah.
Philippines, the worst. They say Filipino time is maybe 2 hours later.
Oh my goodness. Filipino. Oh,
Yeah,
that's much worse than us then. Yeah, actually we have registered the registered students. The number of registered students is 240, Prof.
Wow.
Alhamdulillah, yeah, quite a lot. From and
all
they
over
come
the world? From where?
come from 9 countries.
9 countries.
9 countries. Also including Germany. One student, one PhD student
really?
from
Okay.
Göttingen, from Göttingen,
From
Germany.
Göttingen. Okay.
Yeah. And from the US, from Manchester University, one, and then from UK, from Leeds University,
Okay.
and from Australia, University of Sydney, and then from Pakistan, Bangladesh, Malaysia, and of course from Indonesia. From Indonesia, we have participants from 27 universities, Prof.
Okay, so Vietnam, Thailand, no, don't have.
Thailand, no, we don't have a student from Thailand, but there will be a speaker from Thailand, from
Okay.
Taksin University. You know Taksin University, Prof?
Taksin.
Taksin, yeah, from
Wow,
Taksin.
Taksin University.
Yeah. This Monday, because they just visit us here. This Taksin University for the students and lecturer. Yeah. And then I just invite one of the lecturer.
You know Taksin, right? You know Taksin. Taksin, do you know him?
Taksin is king or yeah?
No, he used to be the prime minister, but then the military.
Oh, sorry, prime minister.
The military chased him out, and I think.
Oh
maybe
yeah.
One of
Prime
the
minister.
richest Thai man, maybe, but now cannot come back to Thailand.
Oh yeah, because of this.
I always stay in one of his hotels when I'm in Bangkok.
Oh,
and
okay.
then they say, "Oh, Taksin Hotel, yeah, that's Taksin Hotel."
Oh yeah. Politics in Thailand is always like that, yeah, Prof. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always military.
Yeah, military coup.
But
always,
it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not so bad. Yeah, it's not so bad.
Okay,
I
Prof.
think Vietnam more difficult.
Yeah.
Much more difficult.
Yeah. Us Indonesia is much safer, much much better than them.
Easier. Anyway, you still have Jokowi.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yes, Prof. It's almost almost 50 now. Maybe we can start. Yeah, Prof.
We can start. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So we meet again in this Zoom session, all participants. Now we have Professor Hermann Waibel here. Okay, Prof, please allow me to just read a bit of your short bio, Prof. Yeah. Okay, Professor Dr. Hermann Waibel is the director of the Institute of Development and Agriculture Economics, the Faculty of Economics and Management, Leibniz Universität Hannover, Germany. His research priorities are
Hello? Hello? Can't hear you anymore.
Ibu, I think you are still mute.
Yes, I can't hear.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm
Now
still
I hear you again.
I'm
Okay.
so sorry. Yeah, because I was, because of the bad connection. Yes, Professor Waibel now is in research work in Southeast Asia. See, he always have every year, yeah, Prof, yeah? Almost every
Yes,
year.
now I hear you. Yeah.
He has a research project in Southeast Asia, Thailand and Vietnam, and now he is in Vietnam. So we thank Prof. Waibel so much to still commit, still having commitment with our summer course. This year is Professor Waibel's third time to contribute in our summer course, just in the middle of his very busy, very tight schedule in Vietnam, and then he will go to Thailand, and then after that go back to Germany. So thank you so much, Prof, for that. Now time and place are yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Malani. As always, you have a very, very excessive and much too much beautiful introduction for me. And so thank you very much for that. And I'm happy to be with your course. I think it's a very good idea that you and your faculty or your department have this course. And I would like to share with you some thoughts about the topic. Is COVID-19 is still there, even though people don't talk about it. Poverty is still there. And then environmental sustainability, I think it's as relevant as ever in rural Southeast Asia. That is my topic. And I want to show you somehow how I would like to approach this topic. So I have 6 points here. I'm probably going to stop after every point, and then you may always interrupt me. So please don't be shy and just ask a question anytime or something on the chat, and then I'll pick it up. But otherwise, I'm gonna kind of stop after every topic and then come with some discussion and questions, so that you don't have to be bored for the whole 45 or 50 minutes listening to me, and then at the end should join in a discussion. So that's how I want to do it. Okay, first thing is I start always with a kind of global picture, which is of course very imperfect. Then I go to the environment in Asia, also very selective. And then I become a bit more like conceptual, theoretical. So I talk of the concept of sustainability, although everybody is using this word maybe 50 times a day, but I still want to try to conceptualize it to see what we really could, how we could actually use it. Then I talk of the concept of poverty, which is also old stuff, and I guess many of you will know it. And then I have a case study of the Mekong River. The Mekong River is my favorite river in the world. I have had so many experience with that river, biking it along the river up and down. So then I summarize and conclude, and we will see how far we will get. Okay, so let's start with the global picture. And as an economist, of course, what are economists talking about? Not much more than economic growth, right? That's what as economists' daily bread. So I put together some growth figures of different regions, so including the world. And that is 2019, that's before the COVID. Then 2019, that was 2020, that is during the COVID. And then the most recent year, 2022. I skipped 21 just for convenience to show it on this screen. So what can we see? Of course, we know the world economy has already been sort of in not a very strong growth mode in 2019 before the COVID, but it was still okay. And then, of course, it dropped. On average, the world economy contracted by 4% in 2020. Almost every country, if you go down in this column, almost every country contracted its economy. So there was negative growth, except China. China still had positive growth in 2020. Now in 2022, it's gonna picking up, but as you could see, not that much. And the forecasts for 2022 are not very positive for various reasons, of which we will still go. So again, if you go to the line of China, and that is really a major factor in not only in the Asian region, but of course also for the world economy. So it's a little bit up compared to 2020, but it's still much lower than what they had expected. And if you go to the next line, and that is India, then you see this seems to be the next big player. India is growing much better than China. And we know China, of course, has this very restrictive COVID policy, and that is definitely a factor that is curbing economic growth. So the ASEAN 5 in the order of 5%, and the low-income developing countries also 5%, which is not much for developing countries who are low income. They should, by theory, they should grow faster because there is still a lot of growth potential compared to the very advanced economy. So in a nutshell, we can say the economic outlook does not look too much promising for the future. So we rather would have to deal with a situation where it's not like before, where it's just going up and up and up. So we probably, in some cases, Germany, for example, will have a forecasted growth of just below 1%, and may even have a negative growth in 2023 due to other reasons, energy, for example. So we are not sure what's going to happen, but it doesn't look that very positive. It's definitely not the booming period that we had experienced in the early 2000s and so on. So let's keep that as the global picture. Then the next one is, and I always have to put this into a presentation, the world population. Now, why is everybody talking about world population these days? Can somebody write it in the chat? Why everybody, you see a lot in the news now about world population. At least every day you open your browser or your whatever, your smartphone, and then you get these push messages about world population. And why is that? Well, because just recently, just in some of these days, the world population has reached 8 billion. If you look at this graph here, this is a forecast from the United Nations Population Division. They forecasted this for 2025, but now we're in 2022, end of 2022, and we already have reached these days the 8 billion mark. So 8 billion people now live on the world. Not easy to imagine what that means. But if you, for example, I worked in the Philippines in the 70s, and that was when the capital, Manila, still had about 45 million people. I'm not sure how many, but the Philippines had 45 million people, and now they have 100. So this is double, and this is what you can see. You can really feel if the population has doubled within 50 something, almost 40, 50 years. So now we are at 8 billion, and we're gonna up further. Not quite sure how much we go up, but some forecasts say up to 10 billion. Some say we're gonna stabilize around 9 plus 9.5 or something. But whatever that may be, what this means and what is interesting in this figure is that if you see the black bar and the green bar, and the green bar is the developing countries. So almost all of this population growth takes place in the developing countries. And that has a lot of implications for migration, for economic growth, for potential conflicts, for environment, and many other aspects, as we will see. So that's population. This is a factor in the equation which we can never ignore. Then the second one, well, climate change. I think also everybody talks about climate change. We recently they had the COP in Egypt, number 27, I think it was. So this is this meeting of the signing parties of the UN declaration 30 years ago, where the countries agreed that they want to curb growth of world temperature. If not, they can stop it, but at least they want to limit the rise in temperature. And you could see on these graphs how that has been, how it is now in the recent years, it's really getting out of range. Of course, there have been always ups and downs, and the dinosaur had died, and all kinds of events happened in the history of the Earth. But what we're seeing now is unprecedented, and that is something that we worry. And in the middle graph, you could see that that only climate models which include the human activity can explain the warming, and which already exceeds 1.5 centigrades in some places, and that is, of course, what the COP wants to manage and to keep it down. And it's not a matter of having it at 1.5 or 2 or 2.5. It's really every digit of centigrade would matter, that we could keep it below. And we still don't know what is going to happen. But what we know is it's getting hotter. That is definitely the case. And we know the extremes, the climate extremes are also more frequent. So climate change, of course, is a separate topic, but I think I have to bring it into the equation. Next one is forest. Forest is, because it's kind of, the forests are the lung of the earth. And this lung is, you know, I'm a biker. So as a biker, you need to have a big lung. Your lung has to have a capacity of, I think when I was young, it had 7 liters of air that could be kept there, but now it's down, I believe. So if your lung is kind of shrinking, then it's very dangerous for your health. And that's the same for the earth. And you can see on this map, the green areas is where the forest still is, and the red area is where the forest has gone, where deforestation and what we expect as deforestation will take place. So you see a lot is in Brazil. That was also recently very, very popular, but there's still a lot of forest there. There's still a lot of forest in Africa. There isn't so much forest anymore in Sumatra. There is oil palm, as you perhaps all know, but there is some in other some of the Indonesian islands. There's still forest, but all of it is under threat. And there are some countries where basically the forest is more or less gone. And that is this country, I think, is Laos. And here I remember Laos, biking to Laos some 30 years ago, there was still a lot of forest, and now you see kind of open fields. So this is another issue. The deforestation is a big factor in how global warming will progress, and how also how agriculture will develop. Because if you take Brazil as a case, deforestation takes place with the argument that they need this area for agriculture, for soybean production, for example. And the same argument is made in Indonesia, that they say, okay, we need oil palm because oil palm is a big economic factor, and so we have converted the forest, the tropical forest, into oil palm plantations. I think Malaysia was actually the first who did that purposely. Now there is some agreements that to curb that, to limit that, but how effective they are is another question. Okay, and I just see Australia also had forests, and a lot had been cut down. So deforestation, just keep this as a keyword. Then the other one is water. Water is really there's a saying that water is life. Yeah, you can do with food for a while, but without water, you cannot do very long. And you see here the world that it's kind of these legends tell you the red, of course, always the red areas on the map are the dangerous one. So this is extremely more stressed. Yeah, the environmental water scarcity index by basin, high stress belt by 2030. So that's the projection for 2030, not too far away, just 8-7 years to go. And that's where, again, you see in the map, where are the red areas? So a lot is in South Asia, a lot is in the northern part of China, a lot is in Africa, and then a lot of the area, if you go to the green, drier, but still low stress. So it's getting drier. Here, the light green is moderately more stressed. So water stress is increasing, and water is basically in everything. Every food production needs a lot of water. Rice, for example, needs a lot of water. And that will automatically be linked to food prices, for example, the same as energy. So water and food, just like energy and food, is extremely closely correlated. So that's another of our environmental challenges that we have. Okay, then let me just say, summarize them. So what are the big challenges? I think one is climate change, the natural disasters that can happen in various forms. And that means directly high volatility in food production. So while we had in the past, we had a continuous growth in the per capita production of food. So that was outnumbering or was higher than the population growth. So the per capita production of food was growing positively, or was growing. So that means there was on a per capita basis, we had more food than in the past. And that is now no longer assured with the increasing frequency of natural disasters, be that storms, typhoons, floods, and drought, and that can often go very closely together. Then the pandemic, yes, of course, here the Vietnamese, they don't want to talk about COVID anymore. So nobody's, when you ask them, what about COVID, they don't remember. They say they don't remember. It's only recently, but they don't want to remember. But who knows? There can be another COVID. Maybe it's not, of course, it's not called COVID. I'm not talking about other variants of COVID. They are there and they are coming. But we have, most of us have been infected or vaccinated and so on. So the virus has more difficult time to find its victims, but there could be other things that could be coming. This issue of nature being very closely with the human nature interaction, which is the end what has caused COVID, is continuing, and other things can happen. Without making any prediction on it. Then another thing that is really worrisome for us, and even in the kind of what you would call the democratic countries and the countries where there's a lot of pluralism and where people can say what they want. Not every country in Asia you can say what you want. If you speak out, you will end in prison. That's not the case in most of the European countries. But what we see is there is nationalism and extremism. So there is this, you remember the famous quote of Trump, America first, and now it's kind of spreading. Now everybody says my country first. That's definitely difficult if that attitude is dominant, if you want to solve the world's problems, because solving the world's problems requires cooperation. Then we have conflicts and war for various reasons. So just think of the Ukraine war, and think of the Taiwan issue. The Taiwan issue is a serious one. I just had a recent encounter when I get out of the airport in Germany, and then you can go to the train, to the fast train connection. And there was a group of, looking like Chinese, and they were not so clear about the train schedule, because the train schedules in Germany and the train announcements are very complicated. And so I saw, and I approached him and said, okay, you need some help? He said, yes, can you help us? We want to go there. And then I said, okay, you are from China? He said, no, Taiwan. So that's really one of these, indicators of what's going on. And then we have economic, sorry, there's a typo, economic slowdown and inflation. Yeah, food prices in Germany have gone up by 10%, which is unprecedented in the recent years. So that's still not a big problem for most of the people because food is only a small share in the total expenditures. But when food has a big share, like 50, 60, 70%, like in many of the poor countries and among the poor population, then that's a big issue if inflation takes place. And there may be others. Yeah, you please, you can add other points. I'm sure I have not completely added all those potential challenges that exist. So that's the global picture. So, okay. Any question on the global picture before I move on? Okay, I have a little Coke here. Some question here already?
Yeah, from Hiswari. Hiswari, you want to ask?
Hiswari,
you can talk to Professor Waibel, Hiswari.
Yeah, can you
Please?
show yourself?
Hello.
Hello.
Can you do on cam, darling? Yeah, good.
Hello. Yeah, you can ask a question if you want.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Working or not?
Can you hear my voice?
Yes, yes.
Yes, can hear your voice, but I cannot see you. But that's okay. Just hear your voice.
Okay. So I want to ask a question. I guess it's more to your opinion. As much as my knowledge go, the cause of global warming is land clearing by burning down the forest, and it is so common in Indonesia, especially. So this is also resulting in haze that is bad for people health. But in Indonesia, there is the method that the people know and they like to use it because it's cheaper and easier, and the people all around the globe also need the agricultural products from Indonesia, such as palm oil. So I want to know your opinion about this situation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that question. Of course, the topic on palm oil, and I had at least 2 Indonesian PhD students who work with me on that topic in Jambi. That's a big topic, and of course, it's, you know, where people say, okay, why did we do that? Why did we ever decide to cut down the forest and then go into oil palm and convert the tropical rainforest into oil palm plantations? I think that's probably, you would say, almost unavoidable that this has happened because there was a need for generating income for increasing growth, but the way it was done was probably was not the best way. Yeah? And now, and as always, when there is a problem coming up, then people start to think, okay, oh, now there's a problem, how could we solve it? And so you have the roundtable on sustainable palm oil, you have the ISOP, the Indonesian Sustainable Palm Oil principles and standards, but once such a process has started, it's very difficult to stop it and to turn it back into something that is more sustainable. Although I would say there is now a lot of efforts to do this, and it relates to the regulations that exist, so the institutional framework, and to the incentives. And if the incentives or we can even say there are disincentives to preserve the environment, and I will come back to that issue later, because that's, I think, one of the most important issues is that we did not from the beginning internalize the external costs that such a process brings about. So thank you for that hint, because I'm gonna pick it up later again, but I can't go now into the details of oil palm production because that's really a different topic. Maybe next time, Mailani, we do oil palm as a topic. Okay, so thank you. Let me go on then and go to environment in Asia, which of course, yes, that's also what you have raised with the oil palm. So, okay, I just show a few slides, a few pictures, which is more or less self-explanatory. So you see this farmer here in the Mekong Delta, where everything has become dried, and you see how his soil looks like. Yeah? Soil is a major resource for agriculture. And soil is the resource where we know least. Right? We know a lot about the oceans, we know about the air, we know about other media, but about soil, we know very little. Why? Because it's not so easy to go into the soil and study the soil. Yeah? Studying the soil is difficult. And that's why we had probably not given enough attention to the soil. So soil degradation is a major issue. About 40% of the world's soil are degraded in some way. This could include erosion, which you could see on the other picture. Here, this is terraces, rice terraces, as you can see it in Java, you can see it in the Philippines, you can see it in Thailand. And then you can see here upper, when you go further up that hill, then there's no more terraces. And you can see that, okay, here probably the soil may come down soon, or what you see here in the middle. So once these terraces are not well maintained, you probably know what's going to happen. You see also in the background of the graph, of the picture, you see a field which is really on a slopey land, and it will not take very long until the soil has come down. And then you have what we call erosion, and it is caused by water, by excessive rain. The soil is washed down. So we are losing soils. Now, some people say, okay, we can produce food in the laboratory and so on. I don't know if you want to eat that food. I still prefer the food that is produced in natural way. And if we want to do that, then we need the soil. So soil is a major issue, and we are losing soil at a very high rate. Another is, as I said, water. Okay, water pollution. This is so typical. I don't know where this is, probably China and some other places in India. So many of the coastal areas, that's how they look like, because, okay, there is no incentive to collect the plastic. There is no regulation that you should not use plastic. I don't know now in the shops, at least in 7-Eleven in Thailand, they are gonna ask you whether you bring your bag. If you didn't bring your bag, okay, they charge you 1 baht. Yeah, 1 baht for a bag. That's almost nothing. So most people wouldn't care. In some shops in Germany, you can't go without a bag, or you have to buy one. You really have to buy a real bag, not just a small plastic bag. And they wouldn't have any more plastic bags at the fruit stand where you could put your fruits in. So this kind of things is existing, and I think it's very widespread in Asia, and that causes water pollution. And water pollution, another consequence is what you see on that next graph, and that's showing the deaths due to unsafe water. And India is top, and I can confirm that. I have been in India a couple of times and have never got out of India without diarrhea. I don't know why. I tried to be careful. It just hit me. And that's confirmed by this graph. So India has the highest number of deaths simply due to unsafe water. And there may be a lot of underreporting also. So unsafe water pollution is something that is specifically, this is all Asian countries that you can see here, is specifically a problem not only of Asia, but of course, very popular or very widespread here. Now, okay, this is kind of the sort of the frame, okay, what's happening, and it was very selective. I'm totally aware that this is very selective what I picked here, but it gives me the entry point to say, okay, let's talk about sustainability. What is really sustainability? And yes, there are about 300 definitions. I think if you Google it, you will find so many definitions of sustainability. But for me, as an economist, I would have two aspects to it. And one is the different dimensions. And of course, there's an economic dimension, there is a social dimension, there's an ecological dimension. And then if we think of these different dimensions, each of them would have criteria. Now I pick the economic dimension and I say, okay, there is at least four criteria, which is productivity, variability, resilience, and equity. So I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about these four. So productivity, I think everybody knows what is productivity. I hear a lot of people talking now. Is there a question?
Pak Parman mau di unmute ya. Sorry, Prof.
Okay, no problem. They're coming in now. Okay, so productivity, yeah, it's a major exam question for the undergraduate students. There, you have to answer what is productivity. Okay, then most people get it wrong. They say factor 1 to factor 2. No, that is intensity. So it is output divided by input. Okay, how many apples per tree? That's productivity. How many kilo or tons of rice per hectare, or whatever you want to use as a unit there. So this is what we mean by productivity. And we know that productivity in the world, in agriculture, but not only in agriculture, of course, it has been going up. It has been growing. And productivity growth is what we simply link to technological progress. So we see that, okay, productivity is going up, the world is good. And if that's no longer the case, sort of if the trend in productivity is no longer positive, then we have a problem with sustainability, because new technologies come in, so new varieties are being bred and different innovations are made, so productivity per se should go up. And if it doesn't anymore, then we have a problem with sustainability. Now, even is the next point. Even we have productivity going up, if the variability or the volatility, we can say, if it's going up and down all the time, and if this spreading of, let's say, we know that from wheat production is going up and down a lot more than it used to be 20 years ago. 20 years ago, of course, every year you can't have the same output in a country on a global level. It will go up and down. It will spread a little bit over time. But if the excesses are very, very high, so we go up and then next year you have a very low production. So if this variability is going up, that's another indicator that sustainability may no longer be fulfilled. Then there's the third point, and that is resilience. That's a term that refers to systems. The easiest way to explain it is to say, okay, some guy hit you on the nose and you fall down and you get up right away, right? I don't know, to hit him also on the nose, whatever. So you're resilient, because if you keep lying, then you're not resilient. Yeah? And that's true for most economic and ecological systems. If they can quickly recover, like from a shock like COVID, like from a flood, if the sector or the economy can recover very quickly, just like from COVID, some sectors recovered very quickly, others it took longer. Some countries recovered very quickly, for others it takes longer. So that's what we mean by resilience. And if the resilience capacity is weak, then again, we have a big problem with sustainability, because it means if shocks will hit, then the system can't go back on its feet. So that's the third criteria that I would propose. And the last one is equity. Okay, that's a big topic. So equity, you could say, okay, so what? Let's have this Jeff Bezos and the Elon Musks, and let them be happy, all those super rich guys. And so what? As long as we also have a little bit more. That's been the philosophy. Okay, everybody grows, and the rich get richer, much richer, but the poorer also get a little bit better and get a little bit grow. But if that's getting out of hand, if sort of, you know, when you say, okay, the average Indonesian income, or let's say the 10 richest Indonesian or whatever country, they have 500,000 times more than the average person. That's a figure that I have heard. Then at some point people may get unsatisfied with that situation. This is also what we see on the world. More and more the world's wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few people. And that's maybe not what most people will want. And there will be, it's a potential for conflict if the equity, which is in economic terms, it's measured by the Gini coefficient, but the Gini coefficient is a very crude measure. So the Gini coefficient may be improving, and yet you have this kind of extreme rich and extreme poor, and the gap would be increasing. Mostly economists refer to the Gini coefficient, and that doesn't look too bad. But it's not really what probably people who think in terms of sustainability would really worry about. So I introduced these 4 criteria, and there could be others, of course, and I'm certainly open to any suggestion that you have. But this is sort of my approach to how I go to sustainability. Now I just have, okay, what happened now? Yeah, I just have a few a selection of some definitions that you found. The most popular one is the first one from the World Council of Economic Environmental Development in 1987, which is called the Brundtland Commission. And it says development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet theirs. Now, most of you guys will be young, and you will probably wonder if that's really true, that the development that we have now, it meets the needs of the present. Yes, perhaps we agree with that, but not compromising the ability of future generations to meet theirs. In Germany, we have a group that's they call themselves the last generation. So they tie themselves and they stick themselves on the ground of highways and block the traffic and so on, and demand changes from the government, because they say, anyway, we are the last generation, anyway, we're going to die. So that's a definition which, long time ago has been promoted, and now we have some questions it's really true anymore. There are some others which I just want to pick, and you can read them later on, but let's go to number 3, because that's a bold one. It says development or economic change designed to maximize the length of existence of the human race. And that was an economist, Francesco Rogan. He was at Harvard at that time. He was the first person who introduced the circular economy model. And then Hermann was an economist at the World Bank all a long time ago. So 50 years ago, they were talking about that thing. And you can ask yourself, what has happened in these 50 years? So the last generation, people say nothing has happened, and it's high time to do something now. So now why this definition is interesting is because ask Elon Musk. Elon Musk probably wouldn't buy that. He would say, okay, if the Earth is no longer a good place to live, we're going to go to Mars or somewhere else. Yeah, we're going to go somewhere else. Now, not many people can go with him probably, but that's the equity issue that's coming back. So sustainability in that sense is that really we want to keep the conditions that people for a long time, many generations can exist on the Earth. So, okay, I just leave it with these 2 and then move on, because we don't want to lose too much time. So I also have this idea or this concept to say, yeah, and I said this when you were raising this question at the beginning about the externalities. I have this concept, or there is this concept of total economic value. And behind that is the idea that, okay, something has a value, but it may not have a price, right? And I come back to that point later with some examples. So mostly what we are used to is the use values, right? We buy something, it has a use for us, it gives us satisfaction, whatever that is food or whatever, smartphones, or perfume, whatever things you need. And that can be directly consumed. So that's everything we say. Even recreation, even health is kind of something that has a direct use value. But then there are other goods which have only an indirect use value. So they have what we could call functional benefits. Okay, I don't know who of you is afraid of a spider. When you see a big spider in the morning, when you take a shower, what are you going to do? Scream, right? Try to smash him. No, don't do that, because the spider is a beneficial. It has an ecological function. And so, but it may not, if you would have to say, okay, what's the value of a spider? Anyway, it doesn't have a value. Yes, it has a value. It has no price, but it has a value. So it has a functional benefit. I'm not going to eat spiders, so it doesn't have any direct use, but it has an indirect use. Okay, so we have to factor that into the equation. Then we have goods which we know they only have an option value. That means we don't have any use for them now. We don't see the use now, but they may have a use in the future. So biodiversity, conserving habitats, that's the question. That's the oil palm question, for example. Okay, what have we lost by converting the rainforest into oil palm areas, which bring a lot of money, but what have we lost? Have we ever thought about that? So that's, and okay, people will say, yeah, doesn't matter. We didn't need that. We didn't need all these snakes and all these, wild animals and plants and so on. But who knows? Maybe in the future we have the knowledge to make use of them, and that's what is called option value. And then there's the other branch, and that's called the non-use value. So you really don't have any use for them. And here is two terms, and one is the existence value. Simply because something exists, it has a value. Just don't say, okay, maybe this thing has no price and I don't see its use. So yes, it exists, but then I don't care, because I don't see any of the other three, direct, indirect, or option. But nevertheless, we would say it has a value because it exists. So everything that exists must have a value. If we believe in some higher system that has generated that, it must have a value. And there can be others, like inherited. You inherit something, you don't need it actually, but you keep it because you have some emotional attribution to that. So now this is the total economy, and mostly we have only focused on this one, right? We didn't really care much about this, and which is, I said earlier, that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that has been done in the past, that we didn't care about those other values, that we include the things that don't have a market price, but they have a value. And I would even go so far to say we should actually try to value them and give them a price tag. If we have a price tag, then it's easier to argue. Others would say, no, don't monetize everything. But I would say, if you can show to decision makers, yes, this in dollar terms, this is what it's worth, then the decisions probably could be different. And we haven't done this. We haven't considered the externalities, the negative externalities of driving cars, of flying airplanes. If we had done this, they would never have been so cheap. And if they had never been so cheap, the world would look very different from now, from the way it is now. The good case is, for example, the energy in Germany, the gas that we bought from Russia. And our former chancellor, she was so proud to supply the whole economy in Germany with this cheap Russian gas. A very, very stupid decision, because no businessman would put all his eggs into one basket. And that's what our government did. So they said, oh, we have this cheap gas from Putin, and he's such a nice guy. Now, I think every secret service in the world would know that he was trained as a KGB agent in Russia, and what that means. But okay, they just closed their eyes and said, we have the cheap gas, and the cheap gas makes the economy grow very fast. It's needed in everything, in pharmaceutical, chemistry, even in the car industry. And so that helps us to grow. And now the bill has been presented. Now we see the situation. So again, if we had not done this, we would have been on a different path. That's why I think this concept of total economic value is very, very important, even though I agree and I appreciate, and this is why this arrow, this big arrow is here down, that the tangibility to value this is getting more and more difficult. So it's because it's far away from what we as individuals can imagine. But as a concept, I think it's important. Okay, so there is this summary of this. So there is this thing, I already mentioned that value and price is not the same thing. Yeah, that's not the same thing. So I asked this question, is it true that money can buy everything? I think my favorite example for that is this famous film of Robert Redford, and in the 1990s, I think you can Google it. And the film is called An Indecent Proposal. Why? There was a poor student, I think, and she needed desperately, she was in debt, and desperately she needed money. And there was this billionaire, Robert Redford, I don't know what, I saw the film a long time ago. And so this billionaire offered her one night for 1 million. Just stay one night with me and I pay you 1 million. Okay. Would she do it? Okay, you can Google it. It's in the film. So money can buy money everything. Some people say, yeah, you know, there is corruption, so you can get what you need if you just pay. Not quite sure it's like that. But it shows the difference between value and price. Option value, already said, are we prepared to pay for something that we might need in the future, but we don't need now? Yeah, that's also an important thing. We need to think about something that we may need in the future. And we haven't thought a lot of that. And that's the same. It was in my previous graph, non-use value. Are we prepared to pay for something that we never have a chance to use or even to see? Okay, so most people would never see an elephant. Most people in Europe will never see, only on the TV, for example, or they have never seen an ice bear because they've never gone, or a polar bear. And there are people who are really willing to pay money for the polar bear to exist. And then the last concept is impatience. How much are we prepared to give up if we can have something now, but later? Yeah. So are we willing to wait for something? Okay. So I have this famous example. So this is referring what the economists would say the discount rate. And I have this famous example when I was with, or I keep repeating that example, when I was with a colleague from Australia, and we were standing at the road, at a big busy road in Bangkok. And Bangkok has busy roads and Thai drivers drive very fast. And there was on the side of our road, there was on our side of the road, there was a girl, and on the other side there was obviously her boyfriend waving to her. And then this stupid girl ran, and okay, luckily she wasn't hit by a car. And I said to my Australian colleague, I said, "That's love," and he said, "No, that is a high discount rate. That's just a very high discount rate." Yeah, true. It's a very high discount rate because a high discount rate means we value everything that we get now, and we value it very little if we can get it in the future. And for environmental issues, that is a key figure, the sort of the discount rate or the degree of impatience that we have. So let's have some takeaway messages from these examples and from these concepts. So resource degradation can be irreversible. Right? That's something in an economic system you say, okay, there is not really something like irreversible, because even if a big company collapses, there will be a new one. Even if, a system collapses, even a country gets broke, okay, somebody will take it over and it will just continue. So resource degradation, but the matter of the fact is there can be processes which are irreversible. Yeah, so you cannot recreate the rainforest. If the rainforest is gone in its original way, you cannot recreate it. Even at least you could say at the current level of technology. Then the second one, this has been the principle of the world. Pollute first and clean up later. It's not a good idea. Now, just think of yourself, how you manage your home or your room. Okay, you pull out everything and you'll throw it and then say, okay, later I clean it up. What about you say, okay, once I use something and I don't need it, and I take it back at its place. So my place stays clean from the beginning. So the principle, pollute first and clean up later. That's the, if you conceptualize it, it's the environmental Kuznets curve, yeah, where They say, okay, poor countries should pollute first so that they grow, and then later there's a kind of turning point when they start caring about the environment. Japan was a classic example for that. Okay, the third point is not in my own backyard. Yes, I am agree for the environment. I really want to support environmental things, but as long as this doesn't happen in my own backyard near me. So there could be, this refers to many things where social kind of organizations, or we had this problem in Germany when migrants were coming. So said, I'm not against the migrants coming, but as long as they don't come to my village, right? Something like that. So that's the other principle. And even if no market price, there is always a value. That's a really important takeaway message. And I come back to my conclusion that I already mentioned before. If we had internalized externalities from the beginning, the world today would be a very different place, because we would have put a price tag on all the things that we had damaged. But we didn't do that. We just said, okay, later we will have the technology, later the younger people, they will find a way to deal with the mess that we have created. And now the younger people obviously are no longer willing to do that. And they, at least in my country, a lot of the younger people are standing up. So they are blocking the lectures in the university and say, we are last generation. We want to remind you that you have to do something and that. Okay, so I think there is really, and we in Germany now, as you may have heard, now many people are worried about the winter, because maybe in the winter we don't have enough energy. Now, I don't think it's such a problem, because as somebody said, it was a comedian, he said, why do the German people need to sit in front of their TV naked in wintertime and have the temperature on 25 centigrades? No need for that, right? You can put on a pullover. And so I have my own method of how I save resources. You see, I have this toothpaste, and I said, okay, maybe it will last another week, but actually it lasted 2 weeks, because I cut it in the middle and I got out all the toothpaste. So I said, it's already empty. It looked empty. And for 2 weeks more, I could use it. And only then I had to switch to the new one. So everybody can do something on that in terms of saving resources. Let me look at the chat. There were some chat questions. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna pick up something from what you said on the chat. Okay. I'm gonna pick this up later when I do the break. Okay. So this is use toothpaste longer. Yeah, it's probably not the best example, but you can find your own example. Okay, let me go on. Yeah, okay, so this is good. We have a break now, and I can go back to the chat question, because sort of a break in terms of, so there is Robbie Fosan. He said, intelligence officer like Putin knows the mechanics of physical commodity trading like nat gas, because many ex-Intel work in that industry. Germany suffered from nat gas shortage due to war, and you have shut down. Okay, well, you have shut down, and you have shut down many nuclear power stations. Do you agree? If we commoditize carbon trading and set up derivative trading of carbon and heavily tax the other sectors to finance transition to greener energy, or let supply and demand meet? Yes, I think that's exactly my point. That if you had internalized externalities, which often means you have to tax gasoline high. Now, gasoline prices were high in Germany, but nowhere where they should have been if you want to capture all the externalities. So yes, the question of heavily tax is a sensitive issue, of course. You would have to kind of be, I would rather say, have a consistent policy where you continuously raise the tax, so that that people have a way to adjust, and that they can decide, okay, am I gonna use my car just to buy something in 7-Eleven 2 kilometers away from my house, or am I going to use my bicycle? So that's what I decided 20 years ago. I said, I'm not going to use my car anymore. I'm going to use my bicycle. And that's good for my health, and that's good for the environment. So Yes, I think that is I would buy that. I would not let it, if you let supply and demand lead the transition, okay, and then you say subsidize the green energy and let the others go. This is like 30 years ago, I think I worked in Indonesia on integrated pest management, and that was the same thing. So there were big programs to teach the farmer to use less pesticides, because it's clear they could do it. We could do it maybe with less than half of the pesticides they used in rice and get the same level of production. But pesticides were so cheap, they were subsidized. Yeah? So the policies, if they conflict, then of course it will not work. And just another point to that question, Germany was on a good way towards converting to green energy. So they invested a lot in wind parks, they invested a lot in solar energy, and then it has been stopped. And then and one of this is it has been stopped. It was by the previous government, the Merkel government, who then said, we have this cheap gas, we have coal mines, and so let's go for that. Because green energy is expensive. No, this is not expensive. The other thing is expensive. Yeah, it's expensive because you don't, let's put it that way. Yeah. Sorry? Some question? Okay, let me stop here. Yeah, this was kind of a long answer to this important question. And then I have Sarah's, may I ask, ever watch a Netflix documentary that said that we already use most of the reserves of our clean water, and they said that in 2040 we're going to have a clean water crisis. For this problem, in your opinion, what can we do if we're really gonna have a water crisis into the... Okay, Sarah, it's always difficult to predict, right? It's 20 years, almost 20 years from now, and people say we have a crisis. Yes, we already have a water crisis. There's no doubt we have a water crisis. It's just not yet well internalized. And of course, if you think of, for example, agriculture is a big user of water, and a lot of the water that is used in agriculture is very inefficiently used. And so here is where technology combined with incentives, and of course also with kind of, making water, pricing water. In Germany, water is priced to wastewater. So my wastewater bill is extremely high, simply because the water is expensive. And technology could help in here. For example, you have like what you have in most toilets in the airport, that the water only comes to a sensor and then it stops, and rather that you can just open your faucet and let it run for whatever, how many minutes. So again, I think there is a lot of possibilities to save water, and if it has the right incentive systems, I think that would probably help. Of course, I cannot say yes whether there will be a water crisis. I say there is a water crisis already, although it's kind of a silent tsunami, as I would call it. Okay, let me go on. If there are any other questions or comments at this point. No, that doesn't seem to be the case. Then we go on. Okay, poverty. Now we talk about poverty. So we have talked about Indonesia. Actually, poverty is more closer to what I did in the last 10 years or so. Poverty in Asia. It seems it was a big topic in the past, sort of when I started as a student working in Asia when was that? Way back in 1974, actually, was my first trip to Asia. And so that was still a big topic. And it has more or less, Asian Development Bank would say, more or less, poverty has been not completely eradicated, but almost eradicated. Now, there was a big, important, and very popular book, which probably most of you will not know. It's from Gunnar Myrdal. He's a Nobel Prize winner in economics in 1974, and he called it The Asian Drama, an inquiry into the poverty of nations. That's a big book. I read it at that time, and I said, is that really true? That doesn't he? So he was, 50, what do you call it, 50 years ago, and then already he had this terrible prediction of what would going to happen to Asia. So what he saw is that these hundreds of people in a rice field working, and he said, so where are they going to go? And he saw, of course, population growth, which was still very high. Now it has gone down. The only country where population growth is still higher than 2% is the Philippines. For some reason, most others are down to 1 to 1.5 in that order. But at that time, population growth was high. And he said, there is no way. How would these people ever find a job? How would they ever be fed? And so his prediction was very doom. And he was completely wrong, as you all know. He was completely wrong. So it's interesting to read old books, because then you will see it's about these predictions. Okay, so predictions are popular when they are forecasting something very dramatic and something when they're forecasting a disaster, then you can sell more books than if you would forecast something good, I think. And that was the case. Although I believe he was very sincere. This guy didn't want to scare people like maybe Elon Musk is doing, or other guys. No, he was very sincere, and he was a good researcher, Swedish guy. So, okay, if we think of poverty, there is no way of getting around this simple formula. Now I'm gonna do some math with you, right? But very simple math. Okay, so I have this formula. It's called the FGT. FGT stands for 3 names. The 3 names of researchers who have invented, I would say, developed this formula as a way to measure poverty. And there are several dimensions of poverty, and these dimensions of poverty are measured in this parameter alpha, the power to the power of alpha. And alpha can be 0, can be 1, can be greater than 1, can be whatever. It can be any number. But if it is 0, then it is what everybody knows, the poverty incidence. And you just figure it out here. You say the poverty alpha, let's say 0. Z is the poverty line. And then N is the population. So Z is the poverty line. And then you deduct from that poverty line those who are below. So the income of those households who are below the poverty line, and then you base it again on the poverty line. So if you do this, and you can figure it out with, I actually have an example, so I can go to the example next slide. And then you figure out that, okay, this is really giving me the number of poor, or the share of poor in the population, if I put alpha 0, because then everything becomes 1 in this formula. So if it's like that, so here I have a little example. I have the income distribution. So I have 4, whatever, households, villages, regions, whatever. No, 5. I have 5. Okay, so this region 1 has 4, the region 2 has 11, 3 has 2, 4 has 6, and 5 has 20. And my poverty line is at 7. Yeah. So in order to measure poverty, you need a poverty line. You need to say, if you are below that level of income, then you are poor. If you are above, you are not poor. That's as simple as and then you can simply count. And that's if you match into this formula, and you say, because then everything is 1, right? Then you simply have to count. And then it's 3/5. So it's 60%. This is in this, whatever it is, the country would be, the poverty headcount ratio would be 60% or 0.6. So 60% of the population would be poor. Now you can also do a next step, and it's the poverty gap. And then you use for the power of 1. And then you have to figure it out. And this is what is here in the brackets. Okay, so you figure out only those which are below the poverty line. You don't need to consider those which are above the poverty line. So you don't consider 11 and you don't consider 20, but you consider 4, 2, and 6. And then you calculate the gap. Okay, you base it again on the total population, which is 5. And so then you have the gap. And then you can square that, and then you have a better measure of captures the distribution below the poverty line. So everything below the poverty line. This is the common indicators of how we measure in economics, how we measure poverty. This is where in the UNDP reports and your country reports, you have the headcount ratio. Mostly that, not always. This one is kind of uncommon, but it's quite an useful figure, because if you have the poverty gap, you can say, oh, how much money would the government have to spend or give to those who are poor so that they will all be non-poor. Yeah? So that's the total budget. You can easily calculate the total budget you need, and you will see it's a huge figure, and it's hopefully it's absolutely impossible that you can get them all quickly above the poverty line. So what governments would do, they would look at those who are just a little bit below the poverty line and then help them, and then they will have success in poverty reduction. You can watch that if you look at the figures on poverty reduction. It's been all tailored towards those who are a little bit below the poverty line. The extreme poor are still there, and most governments wouldn't really care about the extreme poor. Sometimes they would say it's their own fault, they are lazy, and so on. So that's the implication of how we measure poverty. And here is a nice example. This is from Thailand, actually. So you saw here the poverty headcount is the red line, and that was in 1988. It was kind of the time I was in Thailand at the Asian Institute of Technology. And since that time, it went down, 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 and then suddenly it went up again. So what happened in 1986? Somebody knows? Okay, I have some questions, but I'm gonna pick them up later in my next break. So headcount ratio go down and go up. And you see the poverty gap even go up more. And the poverty gap squared didn't go up much more. So this is on this scale. So can you make sense out of this picture? Remember 1996, maybe you were not all of you were born. I remember very well. This was the Asian financial crisis. Indonesians would remember it. Those who were already kind of in adult or semi-adult stage, they would remember the Asian financial crisis when the rupee collapsed completely. And so, okay, this is the Asian financial crisis. So poverty went up again. Poverty gap went up quicker. So, and that's because it was quite unequal how people were hit. And then the poverty gap squared didn't change that much. And it also never went down that much. And that's simply because the extreme poor are the extreme poor. They don't care about the financial crisis. They still are poor. They don't have a car. They don't have something that is related to imported goods or so on. They just live on that low level of equilibrium, as you can see. This is what this figure very nicely shows, what can happen and using those measures. Now, those measures are, of course, imperfect because I always show this picture. Okay, what does this picture show you? And who knows where it is? Somebody knows where this, in which city in the world, in Asia, that picture was taken? Somebody write on the chat. I check. Okay, I check up. Somebody write it on the chat. Somebody want to say it? No.
Come on, somebody guess.
Somebody can guess? Thailand? No, Thailand's wrong. This car, where it's very popular in which country? This kind of minibus.
India, maybe.
Where? Somebody
India.
Can you say again?
India. She said India.
India? No, also it is Philippines. Philippines has used all the American military jeeps and they converted them into passenger buses. This is called jeepney. And they are very colorful and so on. Okay, yeah, but of course it could be any. Yeah, you are right. I mean, you can see it from the face of the man. And you look at this girl here. Yeah, she could be Indian. No, but she's Filipino. Now, okay. So what am I doing here? I'm a salesman. I'm selling cigarettes. You can see the cigarette that I have in my hand, and I have candies. So it's a box. My only capital is my box here. And this guy is the owner of the box. And when I did my sabbatical with the Asian Development Bank, every day I passed him and I kind of befriended him step by step. Every day I bought candies from him. And then someday I said, okay, let's make an experiment. I will take care of your box. I buy your box for the day. You get the money, what you would sell. And then I sell the stuff and whatever is left, I return to you. But of course, my sales, I will keep it, but because I already paid you the money. After some kind of hesitation, he did it. And then he would sit with me for a while, and I was just sitting there waiting people to come. And it's the habit of the people in that business district. They come out from, I don't know, call center or whatever it is, and they come and they buy a stick of cigarette or two. This is the habit. They buy a stick, not a pack. They buy a stick, smoke it, and then go back. And then together with the cigarette, they buy a candy, because after smoking you have bad smell, so you take a candy. So now here you see different cigarettes, and so my problem was that these people they wouldn't really even look at me. They wouldn't even notice that this is a foreigner sitting there. They just is a guy. Is this guy who sells the cigarettes? Okay, so they will say, okay, I need 2 of this cigarette and 2 of Hope with menthol, and they are, oh Jesus Christ, they are not the same price. So how you quickly figure out, and then they throw you 20 pesos, and then they want their cash back quickly. So their change, they want their change quickly, and then they pull out. You have here, I think here you can see it. It's a lighter. So they pick your lighter, and then they light a cigarette, and they walk away, and they don't want to wait so they want their change right away. So cool. Here I was calculating, okay, how much change is it? And this guy, he never went to school, and he just was very, very impatient, and he just grabbed into the cash box and gave them the change. Why? How could he do it? How could this guy do it without ever going to school? How could he do the maths? Which took me, well, maybe a minute to figure it out. He did it in 20 seconds. Why? I think because he remembered all the possible combinations. It's mostly 10 pesos, 20 pesos that they throw in. He know all the prices, and he figured out all the combinations, and he knew immediately how much change there is. And there's another interesting point in this feature. And this is about politics. This is his daughter. Okay, his wife has run away, as he told me, but his daughter was still with him. And so when I gave him the 750 pesos, you would think maybe he will save it. No, he didn't save it. He bought something nice for his daughter, an ice cream or something, right? Which he normally cannot buy. So at least this is understandable, right? That poor people, even though they get some money now, a little money, why would they save it? Why wouldn't they enjoy it now? And so his daughter was happy, and that was probably worth more than saving some of the money that I gave him. That's about poverty. Okay, there were some points here. Okay, yeah, okay, I'm gonna pick up that later. Yes. Okay, Philippines, yeah, somebody said it. Okay, Trivira, she said Philippines. Yes, you are correct. Okay, sorry, no, I was too fast. So, okay, this is my entry point to the poverty story. Now let's go on to the next slide. So, yeah, what is the takeaway message? Monetary poverty has declined, but it can go up again. So if we look at the figures, Asian Development Bank, in the 60s, it has been 70% of the people were below the poverty line. So headcount ratio was 73% in 1965, and it's now in 2014 already was less than 10%. But what we could see that COVID has added up to about 100 million people of the extreme poor. That's not only Asia, that's worldwide. But still, it's a lot, right? So it can go up again. Who says poverty has to continuously go down? And besides, there are other non-monetary poverty indicators. If you look at malnutrition, even though income have risen, malnutrition does not decline. Even though income per capita has gone up, education for most people is still very, very poor. Go to the rural areas. If I go to the rural areas in Thailand and I speak to an English teacher, the only thing that English teacher can say is, how are you? That's the only thing. So how is she gonna teach the people, the student in the village English? She reads from a book, and she doesn't probably know what she is reading. And the people and the children repeat it, and that's how English education goes. Health is another thing. So yeah, health, access to healthcare. You may have money, but there's no doctor. So what? Or you may have some money, but the doctor demands a lot of money because there's no public healthcare system and so on. So I heard from a Vietnamese friend that he was in the hospital with his father, and then there was another poor woman, and they came, and then they said the operation cost so much, and they didn't have the money, and he had to take his mother back home to die, or to make a decision to sell all the land, or to collect the money from other family members or who else to pay for the operation. So that's poverty. That's really poverty, even though on per capita income it seems okay. Participation and freedom of choice. Yeah, so freedom of choice, and I should add here freedom of speech. Can you say what you want? Can you participate in processes? Now, in autocratic systems like here in Vietnam, there is no election, and you open your mouth and the police comes and put you in prison. So there is no, that's another way of putting poverty. And then finally, that's maybe actually the most important one, is that who says that, okay, now you are non-poor by statistical standard, but who says that next year you will not be poor again? So this up and down, people getting in and out of poverty due to various kinds of shocks. That's probably most important poverty concepts. And it's very hard to measure, because you would need a model that predicts somebody in this condition, even though his per capita income is above the poverty line, it could easily go down if something happened to him. So there's another concept to do that. So this is my takeaway messages. Okay, now I come back to the chat and I look at the guide. So I have questions and comments. So go up again. The crisis today, Philippines, Thailand. Okay, there was this thing here. I forgot. The crisis that is due to the developed countries becoming developed and developing countries becoming more developing due to low infrastructure and economy not well developed in developing countries due to corrupt government of that developing countries. Is any solution to reduce poverty and other human being problems and also global warming at international level? In developing countries, poverty due to corrupt governments. Any solution at global level where government of that government not involved? So if I understand the question right, yes, of course you raised the question to, who is that, Mohammed? Yeah, the question of corruption. I suggest you, if you perhaps know it, there is a World Corruption Index. It's by an NGO. It's called Transparency International, and there you have the corruption index. And interestingly, so you know the rank of every country in terms of corruption. And you could even say, okay, correlate that corruption index with the growth of that country. And you will see that a lot of the countries that have grown very well are actually very corrupt. You would also see, for example, that Germany, which has been pretty, how could you say, uncorrupt or less corrupt, is now increasing in level of corruption. I mean, our Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, has a lot of issues now, and who knows, at some point they're going to get him, and then he may have to step down. I don't want to predict that, but there is a lot of things that is going on. And corruption is, yes, it can be certainly a hindrance to growth, but it's not, it's, how would you call it in economics? It's transaction costs. Okay, you have to pay more to get the things happening, but they happen, yeah, if you pay that guy. So, okay, I have to pay for every signature when I do my survey, which I start next week in Vietnam, I have to pay something. Not a lot, but I have to pay. So in a way, you could say it's the oil that makes the economy going. If it would not be there, it would not be possible to bribe someone, then it would just take a lot longer. And then probably the productivity loss would be higher. So I'm not so sure. The corruption question is difficult. It's difficult. Of course, in the end, if corruption is dominating human life and everybody is kind of then corrupt and then only always opens his hand for anything, then I think the society will no longer function. But on the high level corruption, I actually wouldn't say it's a direct reason why certain countries do not grow. I suggest you look at that. I haven't really studied that, but there are people who study corruption relative to economic growth. So, but it's of course an interesting, very relevant question. Then I have the next one. Okay, that's this that the crisis there is due to developed countries becoming. Yeah, that was the one. Is there any other? This is second. You had 2 times, right? Do you think?
From Noel, Prof.
Yes.
From Noel, from Göttingen, Prof. Guten Tag, Prof. Deine presentation. I don't know in Germany.
Who is that? Who is
He
that?
greets you from.
Guten Tag. Deine Präsentation super. Ah, he says Noel. That is from Göttingen, I guess. He says Guten Tag.
Yep.
Why does ISBO have a better acceptance in Europe compared to ISBO? Ah, okay. That's a specific question. That's interesting. Yes. Indonesia got out of RSPO. Now, why? Why did they do that? Because who governs RSPO, Round Table of Sustainable Palm Oil? It's the big companies who run the show. They invite the NGOs to be on there. And Indonesia got out because Indonesia is the biggest producer and they didn't want to be dictated by the big companies. I got this I had a meeting with one of my students. We had a workshop, and then the Minister of Trade came and he said it indirectly. He said, Indonesia for a long time has been the nice guy, but now we don't want to be the nice guy anymore. And so they created their own, and they probably were right to do that because the market, yes, it's the European consumer who is kind of, the European consumer says, yeah, we want a certificate, we want a label that would make us feel good that oil palm is produced in a good way, with high social standards, with high environmental standards. Okay, that's RSPO. And the companies have done that. The companies have given that, and the Indonesians, as the biggest producer, did not join it and had their own standard. Now, how successful they're going to implement it, I have done a couple of works on that, and that's definitely something to be looked at more closely. But there's some adoption of the standards, and there would be a lot of benefit if the Indonesian government would invest more to make farmers adopt those standards, because it's not just a matter of making a law and say, okay, from tomorrow onward, you have to follow those standards. That's simply impossible. So then you ask this question, what is your opinion about shifting of using palm oil as vegetables in European countries after the presence of war in East Europe at the same level? EU countries are often notified of oil palm products in the WTO. Shifting, so you mean getting out, not using oil palm products anymore as vegetable oils in EU countries. Are often notified of oil palm products in WTO. Do you think Germany and the majority of people supports the development of the oil palm industry in developing countries? I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure that most people in Germany would know that. It's now, there are NGO groups who say, okay, you should not buy the products from Indonesia, for example, or you shouldn't buy the palm oil products because they are unsustainably produced. That's probably true. But the alternative is, okay, if you ban, or you would say, okay, as a consumer, you decide not to do that for ethical reasons, and you buy it somewhere else, you have to look carefully what are the externalities of those others. Okay, so you have sunflower, you have rapeseed, and so on. You have maybe some alternatives. Although oil palm has a lot of advantage because it is so widespread in so many products it can be used. So it would be difficult to find perfect substitutes for oil palm. Now, I think the efforts to improve the conditions of farmers and to work with the farmers on improving oil palm sustainability, that's the way to go. There is no way to go back. The oil palm is there and it will not disappear anymore. And to say we stop buying it, that's probably the effects. Besides, I don't think most people would do that would anyway. But to simply substitute it by something else, I think is very problematic. Okay, that's this question. Then do we have any other?
I don't think so.
That's all. Okay, then we can go on. All right. How are we doing with time, Melanie? Am I late again? Yeah, I am.
It's all right.
But I'm late. Okay, I'm late again. Oh, sorry. But okay, I'm gonna go quickly to the next. This is my Okay, my next thing is the Mekong River example. So I kind of go this screen. I said, this is the Mekong River. I don't know any of you have seen the Mekong River. It's such a mighty river. And it's what I say, a river going to die. I can do this quickly. So this is the Mekong River. It's across a transboundary natural resource. So that's bound for conflict because different countries share it. You know, when 6 people share the same toy, 6 children share the same toy, you will know that there is conflict. And now here is even more conflict because it's a river. And those who are in the upper part of the river, which is the Chinese, they have a big advantage. And those who are at the lower part of the river, which is the Vietnamese, they get most of the shit. Sorry for that word, I should not use it. That's the issue of the Mekong River. So now the river is dying. Can you see that? This is the Mekong. This is me. Well, of course, that's me, yeah. But more important than me is the Mekong. And what can you see of the Mekong? Almost nothing. This is in March 2020. Yes, in March 2020, just before COVID. So I just made it with the last Turkish Airlines flight back to Germany before everything closed down. So this was it's in the northeast of Thailand, opposite Laos. So you can see on the background, you see Laos. And you can walk to Laos. At that time, there was hardly any water in the river. So here you see it without me, then it's better. You see the Mekong. Would you believe this is the Mekong River, the mighty river, the river of life and of everything, where some 100 million people have been fishing and so on. Now, it doesn't always look like that. Of course, in the wet season, it looks different. But what you can see here is now, here you can have satellite images. And this is the same spot in northern, this is kind of in 2013, I think this is 2022 or something like that. So 10 years gap. So you can download this from some satellite images. So you see the river and you see how the sandbanks here has grown in these 10 years. So this is the same spot. And this were the sandbanks at that time where sometimes people go, or this kind of a small island where people go to grow vegetables. And now it's a lot of gravel and sand that is coming down and maybe closing the river. So at that time there was water, but it could be that in some parts of the year there's almost no water, and then in other parts of the year there is a lot of water. And why is this? Why? Because there is a lot of hydropower dams. So you see these hydropower dams, which is okay. They say, yeah, this is development, right? Everybody would agree this is development. We have these hydropower dams which generate electricity. Laos become the battery of Southeast Asia, supplying all the energy. Yeah, we also have irrigation water for the farmers around there. But okay, the fish, yeah, for the fish, not so nice because they can't go up and down the river anymore. It's not a big... it's not easy for a fish to jump over these walls here, and if it gets into a turbine, there is nothing left of the fish, and there are big fish, big giant catfish in there. So, okay, so this is the major negative externalities is that some parts of the year that dam may be so full that it has to be opened, and then you have flooding in the neighboring provinces. This I just was in Ubon Ratchathani, and it was totally flooded because they had to open a dam. So this is, I don't know, Melanie, I don't have so much time anymore to show these last slides, but basically this is a study that I had done or started, and I'm gonna start a project next year where I will interview a village every 25 kilometers on the river, starting in southern China, because I already have data from there. I have data from Laos. I have data from Thailand a lot on the river. So I'm going to include Myanmar and Cambodia. I also have some data from Cambodia. So every 25 kilometers, I pick a village. And I'm going to do these kind of things that I showed you, looking at the satellite images, talking to the village elder people, how they saw the village development in the last 20, 30 years. So it should be an interesting database. This is what we did with our database from the Thailand-Vietnam Socioeconomic Panel. So I looked at some 50 villages which are near the Mekong River. And I just looked at, I compared them. I said, okay, 2007 was the first year of our panel. And then I looked at the panel data in 2017. And I thought, well, okay, so what's going to happen to this village? Okay, are people getting out of the villages? No, they come back. So there were households. The population has increased. The income has increased. Yes, the income has increased. Crop production has not increased much. Livestock and agriculture has increased a bit, but natural resources are down. So no fish, basically, that's down from 7 to 1. Remittances, that's the people who went from the village to work in Bangkok or somewhere else, have actually declined. So that's due to poor economic development and to crisis. And then you see some of the changes. More interesting, perhaps, is the households that were engaged in fishing. 276 in 2007, down to 170 to 141. So and the migrants kind of have been have declined. So there's less people who are actually going away for earning income. Now, the most interesting figure is if you look at that. And this is in PPP, purchasing power parity, dollars per household. So the debt, so the households are terribly indebted. So the degree of over indebtedness, which is, so if you have a income, what is that? DSR is a ratio that captures the, oh, sorry, I forgot what it is now, but it's a kind of a debt ratio that says 50 is kind of the threshold, and it has doubled basically in these 10 years. Yeah, so the debt has gone up. So now what can you say? Have they gone better or have they gone worse in this time? And I just say, okay, natural resources have down. So one natural resource is mushrooms. This lady was collecting mushrooms. Is she going to do that in the future? Can she still do that in the future, or are they going to disappear? This was kind of the COVID. I'm going to switch that because it's global. But also this one I can switch. Yeah, this one I take. Okay, so this was the questions that we asked we picked 10 villages in Laos and 10 villages in Thailand, and then we had informal talks with the village heads, and we said, okay, what happened to COVID? So the relation was to COVID. What happened? Was infected or know something about COVID? Okay, so nobody, no. And then average household income before COVID. This was, you don't see here. Can I move this? Yeah, I can move it. Yeah, now I can see it. Okay. So average income before COVID, and then average income during COVID, and average after the lockdown. This is kind of the Thai situation. Very small difference. So the COVID didn't really affect them, but they were very much afraid of the COVID. So they didn't really have, actually, when you asked for the income, there was not a big change in income. Although over half of them said we perceive a negative financial impact. And but on the same time, also 1/3, they didn't perceive a negative income, just 1/3 of them. And even some 14%, they said, oh, it was actually better. Why? Because the government had a support program, and people in the village, they don't spend much. They don't go to cinema, they don't go to Starbucks or whatever. So when they got the COVID money, they actually had more money because they were self-sufficient anyway. Yes, some animal markets were closed for some time, but it wasn't really that bad. So the COVID resistance they received on average was 17,000 baht. It was quite a bit over this COVID period, the lockdown period. So, and then, okay, you look at the migrants. So actually, while they were very much afraid of the COVID, they didn't really have an impact. The impact for them is much stronger for the river. So here we compare the Lao and the Thailand villages. So, okay, the Lao villages were hit because they couldn't go over the Mekong. There was really police shooting at people if somebody wanted to cross the border. So that was really closed, and they couldn't go for fishing. They couldn't. It was really constrained. And then they had in the Thai villages, they saw the negative effects on employment because, yes, the migrants couldn't, they had to come back or they did have no job anymore. And so the Mekong really played a role in the time of that crisis. It suddenly became a border, and it used to be a border. The measures, so people took some measures, the village took some measures against COVID, and these were again quite different. Yeah, the Lao villages react to COVID restrictions indirectly. The Thai villages react directly to the pandemic. So they had restrictions, and some people were banned from going somewhere when there was COVID. So in the village it was quickly known somebody had COVID, so you had to be isolated, and even the village chiefs, they took the people to vaccination, so they had no chance, they had to get vaccination, get very high vaccination rates quickly. So the long-term effects, okay, so of COVID for the village development, the Lao village heads were more optimistic, while the Thai were less optimistic. They said, because now people don't trust each anymore, there is the lack of cooperation now, lack of financial means that due to economic decline will impair future development. That's what they said. And the assessment of COVID severity is Thai villages already have COVID and Lao village didn't have COVID, but everybody was afraid of COVID. So there is more to that case study, which I will probably will continue to do that work. But summarizing this, so the challenges are increasing, but so is our knowledge. And as I say, and this is what this case of the COVID of the villages shows, it may not be the mankind's major challenge. I think we all agree that now, but we can learn quite a lot from that pandemic of how the reaction is. And we can go back to COVID now. I can answer that we can go back to normal life when COVID has come under control. And what can GDP growth tell us? As you all have seen, perhaps from this lecture, very little. And I'm still not surprised that most economists talk about nothing else than about GDP growth, because who knows, in the future, you may have to deal with GDP decline rather than with GDP growth. So because I think we have to spend more on repair, replacement, and rebuilding, and maybe have much less for expansion, for growth, because we would have to keep deal with more and more shocks, and that would mean most of our spending would be on repair, which is, in GDP terms, it will add to growth, but in terms of natural resources, it will be decline. Perhaps we need to rethink sustainability. Okay, minimize the speed and the magnitude of decline instead of trying to maintain the status quo. So maybe that's our future challenge, that we have to manage the decline that is perhaps inevitably coming because of the huge challenges that are ahead of us. And the area of sort of unprecedented growth with little problem and only side problems and small problems, that if you listen to the group of last generation, that is over. And I also have a feeling that this is over. So I was looking, last year I had this quote at the end, and I was looking for a new one, and I said, I think this is still the best one. And this is a French Jesuit priest who said that. And that's also kind of a positive message that I want to give to you. I don't want to leave you without hope. And he said, a long time ago, he died in 1955. And he said, the future belongs to those who can give hope to the next generation. So that's my job, and that is your job also. So I have to say thank you, Terry Makashi, and Dankeschön. Yeah, Melanie, sorry for overshooting again.
All right, Prof. Big applause for Prof. Waibel. That was really always amazing presentation from Prof. Waibel, always. Okay, Prof. I think we have still have one question.
Okay.
From Robbie Fauzan. Robbie, do you want to
deliver your? Is it on the chat? I see it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, it makes sense now. Olam, Wilma, Kofo, now building strong team for rice trading. Maybe our friends will put many crop analysts there in Mekong. Robbie, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I don't understand. Whose name is that? Olamo.
We will long rice.
Along rice, you mean? What you mean? Put many crop analysts there in Mekong. You mean to
Yeah, I'm
improve?
from the commodity trading sector. So
Okay.
if you say that in the future water shortage will be apparent in Mekong, then maybe we will considering more focus on rice trading instead of palm oil trading here in
Okay,
in
okay, I
Indonesia and
understand.
Malaysia.
Yeah. Yes, okay, that's true. But certainly rice trading, I mean, as you know, the rice market is a market which is completely sort of dominated by contracts, by bilateral contracts, right? So the open market is only a remainder. Because countries want to assure that they have enough rice, and some countries really go for a policy of rice self-sufficiency at very high cost. So I'm not sure the future will be like that, where you say, okay, let's rely on other countries, those who can grow rice better than us, let's do them. Think of Indonesia. They had spent a lot of money on trying to have enough rice for themselves. And when there was the food price crisis in 2008, the classic example is the Philippines, who didn't care so much about their domestic rice production. And suddenly they had to buy rice. They just couldn't find rice anymore in the world market, because the reaction then in a crisis, the reaction of the exporters is to keep it and to wait for the price go up further. And so I'm rather have the feeling that now the countries would be more going again for the self-sufficiency policy. And so that may have negative effects on rice trade overall. I don't know, but it's kind of the rice trade and the trade in other things. It's in a world which is pretty stable. Then trade can work very well. And then you can say, okay, I don't need to produce this because I can buy it from some other countries. But as we've seen with the Russian gas, suddenly it can stop. So it seems the country is now getting more into a more kind of isolation mode, which is certainly not good for the world economy. I would absolutely agree. So yes, I think it's an interesting idea that you raise. But my feeling is it's probably not the time currently that you would have an expansion of trade. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the situation is like not gas and the others that rely on long-term contract, and so we in the trading house will focus on the logistic and political side of the trading as the result, because even in the occasion of sanctions, our friends still can sell things to North Korea, to Iran, and we know who sells it. Yeah. As long as you open the logistics, we can sell, because
I believe so. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, sure. That I don't say there will be no more trade. No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But and there will always be countries who have no way to, they depend totally on the production of others. And the countries you mentioned are classic for that. Yeah. But go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
And as long as you don't shut the logistics side, we can say we can still send the products to everywhere, because our motto is the world is for sale.
Yes.
We can sell as long as we can deliver.
Sure. That's true. But just consider that energy will get more expensive. That means also transportation will get more expensive.
Yeah. And during the COVID, the lesson is the problem is the logistic situation in the shipping. In the shipping industries. That's the lesson from 2020 and 21.
Right. Yeah.
Shipping rates.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Okay. Melanie, how are we doing? I don't hear anyone. Everything silent? Melanie, you are muted. You are muted.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think that's all the questions from the floor. Prof, can we have picture before we go? Everybody,
Okay.
can you please do on cam, please?
Okay,
Come on.
I will take down my
Don't be
glasses.
lazy.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Ya, Mas Arif bisa tolong fotoin kita, Mas. Okay, everybody on cam first. Come on.
Slide 1.
Okay, now they're
Masih
showing
belum
up.
pada on cam,
1,
Mas.
2, 3.
Coming, number 1.
Slide 2. Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Okay.
Prof, sorry, Prof. One question from Daniel. Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel.
Jackson.
Okay, sure.
Sorry about that. In your opinion, can we make zero poverty on a reality, or we only have the option of reducing it?
Can you repeat it, Mami? I didn't get the first part.
Can we make zero poverty a reality, or we only have the option of reducing it?
The zero poverty goal is there from the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Supposed to be 2030. It now looks like they're not going to make it for 2030. That's how it looks like. But the goal remains. The goal remains, and I think that's a laudable goal, and it should remain as a goal too. And I'm not saying it's not possible. That's and as we said, reducing poverty does not necessarily mean income has to grow on average a lot, or we need more rich people and then we will have less poor people. It's not that connection. So yes, I think it's possible to get everybody out of poverty without the world getting a lot richer. That I think is possible. But it will, most likely it will take more time. I don't think the 2030 goal can be reached.
Just in the next 8 years, yeah. No way. All right. Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Waibel, for always your huge contribution to this summer course, and we hope that next year you will be available again to contribute again to the next summer course of our department. Thank you so much, Professor.
Only if in Bogor, Melanie.
Okay. Let's make it in Bogor. Let's make it offline, okay?
Yes.
Semangat.
Okay, semangat.
All right. Okay. Once again, big applause for Prof. Waibel.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yes.
Please don't forget to fill in the attendance form. Yeah. Okay. So we meet again tomorrow. Okay.